Hello everyone, this is Dr. Shijun Wang. In today's video, I am going to continue working on the middle part of the Chopin Scherzo number 2. And this middle part, this so-called climax of the piece, really requires so demanding with the technique. Not only that every single section has a very unique pattern for the techniques, they switch very rapidly. And almost like you have to, maybe in an Olympic game, you have to like run, and after you have to swim, and after you have to do cycling. You have to switch the technique in a really rapid, fast speed. And what's more difficult and challenging for everyone is that many times, or almost all the time, your left hand is doing a different set of techniques, your right hand is doing something completely different. So not only you have to switch fast, you have to work with two hands something differently simultaneously. Almost like you have to cut your brain into half. This takes care of the right hand and this part takes care of the left hand, and they have to do everything harmoniously without making problems, and of course to achieve their each individual goals. Alright, so let's start from measure 436, and then this climax section ends in roughly about 150 measures in around 600 measures. So we talked a little bit about this middle section, how it began with leggero, and left hand almost provides this dance-like. This is almost dance-like feeling, so it's nothing heavy, right? And then right hand. And we mentioned how please do not play like the typewriter style, as Mr. Lowenthal often to put it. Everything even without emotion. So whenever we have a crescendo, we're going up. And if you don't know how I got this feeling, it's actually from driving. When you are switching, when you are turning, then you feel this, I don't know the exact word, I'm sure everyone can Google it, and when you're turning, you feel this resistance. You have to reduce the speed a little bit, right, to follow the law of the physics. That's what happens when you're switching direction, when you're playing. Yep. So we talked about this, and we are not going to say more of that. However, between the two hands, they're really doing completely different things. So we have to somehow make sure your left hand can do the work almost semi-automatic, and right hand can play like this when you're talking like me. Okay. There is one thing that I encounter quite often while I teach. My students, when they see these big leaps, they like to add a heavy accent. And they do this because they couldn't quite move as fast as I can. Why is that the main cause of this? Because whenever we encounter a big leap like this, we have to make sure we get there much faster than the note's supposed to sound, and then we touch the key before we play. Right? If we have not trained our fingers to go very fast, we ended up hitting that note. Right? So if you hit the note, then you produce something that you cannot quite control. Yeah, this is almost like if you are one day visiting a very famous, respected musician, and you said the meeting is at 2 o'clock. No, no, no. You want to be there probably 10 minutes before, and even if this host is not ready to see you, you wait in the car and knock on the door when it's time, but you wait a little bit before. Okay, and this stayed until this kind of feeling stayed until measure 452, and where Chopin put a forte and changed this pattern into suddenly octave. So this is, I don't think, leggero. This is more heroic. And make sure this has only one beat, one measure, two measure that connects. Okay, so a lot of students, they miss that detail. And here again, left hand is doing octave works, while right hand is doing this very awkward. Yeah, as hard as this, but maybe even harder because your left hand is also moving. And how do we resolve this? Well, two things. One, make sure we remember the grouping. So these. We're not fighting to find the next note. We are trying to remember the shape of the entire chord. Like that. And also, I know this is loud, but even when it's leggero like this part, the best way to make our hands get familiar with the positions quickly is to play them deep. So almost like you think it in. Yeah, if we only do on the surface, then the hand or the fingers really, they can't memorize or they can't remember this position very well. The other thing is to make sure when we play the black keys, our fingers are a little bit flat, right? If we only do this, not only if we put this flat, the hand becomes bigger, right? It's easier to find. But if we have this kind of a round shape, then it's instantly smaller. And also, it has less surface to hit the right notes. Okay, and left hand now faces this one problem. If we were to play every single note with a separate gesture, not only this will confuse the right hand, this will also confuse the left hand itself, because first of all, it will be too loud, okay, and we will have no musical shapes. It will be unmusical. So what do we do? And this is, I think, what separates the understanding of technique between the professionals and then the amateur. I hate to use the word, but to the less advanced pianist. A less advanced pianist thinks we need to play every note the same way. But then the professionals, we think of groupings, and we of course don't play every note the same way, and we don't always play every note deep. For instance, I only actually played twice. The first is going to the D sharp. The second time is the last C sharp. So So in this way, not only that we hear a crescendo to D sharp and then an accent on the C sharp, I'm also quite relaxed because I'm not banging on every note. So this repeated C in the middle almost is like a byproduct. It's something I make, something I left while making other products. And all of these don't play like that. And here probably the real notes that I was treating seriously was the D sharp again, and then the D natural. But all of these, I just do a crescendo where I push with my upper body, but these notes, I simply don't have a separate gesture for each. Okay, and when I started to teach at Weber, I have some college students who haven't quite figured this out, and it's very hard to understand. So I asked them actually to practice how to write check marks, right? And we do this naturally. Everyone knows how to write check marks. We don't do it 2 times. Yeah, we do it once. Maybe more focus on the first one going down, and then the one goes up. It comes naturally, almost like a kickback. Yeah, when you're firing a pistol or something. Boom, right? 1. It's a kickback. So here, if I give you a 2-note example, for instance, right? We don't have a separate gesture for the second note. And here, sometimes we have 3 notes that are kickbacks, right? Or sometimes we have 2 notes before the main one to prepare the main note. Okay, so anyways, you might think this octave is hard, but it's hard if you play every single note, and it's much easier if you only play, let's say, 1/3 or 1/4 of the notes, and use this momentum to play the rest. Okay, it's not cheating. It is something that all the professional pianists do. The next part, this really derives from this beautiful string quartet section not so long ago. And this part, what I most often encounter is the despairing C natural, because here this C natural is very important. It's part of the melody, and it's part of the melody when the melody is on top. Right? But what's the cause for so many students playing like this? Well, the main reason is because you were holding second finger and then the thumb almost while you're holding the pinky as well, because the previous note is the pinky, and you leave only the 4th finger to do a heavy duty job, right? So if you solely depend on the finger, there's no way you can carry this out. And how do I play? How did I practice so that I can play like this? Because I didn't use my 4th finger, I used my arm. Okay, and like I just mentioned, how many gestures do we use? Really, it's something that separates professionals with amateur pianists. And I just mentioned how we shouldn't use so many gestures. But if we think in the reversed way, if we're really desperately in need to make a weak finger standing out, or a weak finger having a heavy duty, but we want the note to speak, push with our arm with a separate gesture. It's also a very good solution. Okay, and of course this is a hard section, and a lot of great pianists, they played it so fast and so accurate. I think the five notes is not hard, and it's almost quite comfortable. But how do we find the next position very quickly? Not by aiming the fifth finger, although the right hand starts on the fifth finger. But I have a hard time really looking at this F while my left hand is in the same area. I can't see the F. So I aim with my right hand thumb. The A is right underneath my eyes. Yeah, the most comfortable octave for me to aim. So I didn't see the F, but I see the thumb, and that's what helped me to find the position. All right, so one last point before we close this week's video, and I know it's been a long time. Resolving technical problems is probably requires the most thinking and requires the most patience to do, most patience. So here, not this one here. This is a super challenging part. Yeah, one has to probably practice how to run half marathon to play this without breathing heavily. And what's hard is this jump. And I can't really think of another example where you jump from fast running single note to a heavy chord back and forth for so many times. Yeah. And how do we do this? We have to think of the very basic understanding of big leaps. Okay, this is mentioned by Neuhaus in his book The Art of Playing Piano multiple times. And he actually, this is funny, the book was written, I don't know what year, but he passed away in the early 1960s, I think 1964. So it cannot be newer than that, right? So it's about 50 years ago, let's say, he mentioned this point. And in the book, he also complained how this was such an early established understanding, but people in his days still don't get it. So I guess after 50 years, the things didn't go as good as he expected. The leaps are always come from one note to another note with a curved line. It's never straight. Yeah, so we have to find the next note with a curved line, and also arrive a little early and touch the note before you play. Not only this, of course, makes the accuracy much higher, it also gives us much better control over the notes, so we don't hit the piano. If we hit the piano, which should be against the law, right? Writing on the Constitution, never hit the piano. But if we hit the piano, then the sound is harsh and it's really outside of the style. If you like today's video, please subscribe my channel and also turn on the little bell so that YouTube will notify you when I upload a new video. And I hope next video I can just finish this whole piece and move on into some other fun pieces. And again, if you are currently working on this, or if you're planning on learning this, send me a maybe 30 to 60-second clips if you want of you playing the piece, and I will comment. I will share my expertise with all of you and probably do an extra episode teaching or commenting on my YouTube viewers playing. Thank you for watching. See you next week.